Lekut Sichos Chelek Yud Beis Sicha Tzaria Aleph. Different than many of the sichas we've learned together before, this sicha is primarily utilizing the teachings of Chesed, Teres Chesed, to understand an inyan in Nigla, an inyan in Gevurah. And by way of introduction, this week Parshas Tzaria and Tzaria both speak about the halachas of Negoim, of Tzaras. So we're going to find the machlekes between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta Dirikia, the Yeshiva Shalmaila, which is the same type of machlekes that we find in the Mishnah, and the Machriya, the resolution will come from an Amoira, from Rabbi Bar Nachmani, and we're going to try to figure out how does an Amoira, how does a person, a Basar of Adam on this earth, resolve a dispute, a machlekes between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta Dirikia. So let's begin. It's page 64. Tnan b'Masechta Negoim, we learn in Mishnayos, in Masechta Negoim. Im baheres kadmon l'seir lavan tamei, v'im seir lavan kadmon l'baheres tahir. In order for a nega, in order for a tzaras to become tamei, it has to have simone tuma. So first of all, it has to have a white blotch, a white space that is discolored, off skin color. It has to be white. And the Mishnah and halacha discuss the various different shades of white. It also has to grow white hair inside of the baheres. So if first came a baheres, and then came the seir love on the white hair, then the white hair is a siman tuma because it's growing inside of a baheres, inside of a tzaras, and the person is tummy. Im seir love on kadon lebaheres, but if the white hair came first, then white hair by itself is not a siman tuma, and therefore just because the fact that there's white hair there does not make it tamei, and even if a baheres grows there afterwards, or appears there afterwards rather, it would still not become tamei because now this is no siman tuma there, because the seir lavan that's there, the white hair that's there, was already there before the baheres was there. Safek, v'im safek. What happens if one person wakes up or looks down and he sees both a baheres and seir lavan and he doesn't know which one came first? So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says tamei, that the person is tamei. You have to be machmir, and the person is tamei. But Rabbi Yeshua argues and says kiha. There's various different interpretations. One interpretation is that kiha was that his teeth became white from constantly arguing with the Tanakama to say tahir. Another pshat is that kiha from the word keha, that he looked at it as a very light baheres, not dark enough, not dark white enough to be tamei. Either way, the Gemara explains mafarish beGemara my kiya v'tahir. That Rabbi Yeshua holds, unlike the Tanakama who says safek is tamei, Rabbi Yeshua holds that a safek is tahir. The time of Rabbi Yehuda mevar beGemara sham, and the Gemara in Masechta Nazir explains why does Rabbi Yehuda hold tahir. Omar Kra, the pasuk says towards the end of this week's Parshas Tzaria, letaroi oy letame. This is all the halachas of tzaras. Letaroi to make him tahir, oy letame to make him tamei. And the Gemara says, heyilu pasach be'akasav betara tchila, because the pasuk starts letaroi and then letame mentions tara first. From this, Rabbi Yehuda learns that when there's a suffix, you lean to be metahirim. So that's the Mishnah. That's the halacha in Hilchas Negoim, is the Mishnah in Masechta Negoim. The Gemara talks about it in Masechta Nazir. Then, Masechta Bava Metzia, we have the same machlekes, except this time it's not two Tanoim in a Mishnah, it's a machlekes between Mesifta Dirikia and the Eibishter HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Masechta Bava Metzia Yisrael, coming from the Mesifta Dirikia, there's a machlekes in Mesifta Dirikia and the Yeshiva Shalmaila. In Be'eres Kedem L'Seir Lavan Tamei. If the Be'eres comes first, then clearly it's tamei because the Seir Lavan is a siman tuma. If the Seir Lavan came first, so it's not considered a siman tuma, and therefore each person is toyer. Safek, if we don't know if the Beheres came first or the Seir Lavan came first. Says the Gemara about Mitzvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Eimer Toir. The Eibishter himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says Toir. For Kulu Mesifta Dirikiya Amri Tamei, and the whole Mesifta Dirikiya, the Yeshiva Shel Maila, all say Tamei. For Amri, so they said, Ma Noichach, who is going to arbitrate? Who is going to resolve this machlekes between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta Dirikiya? Noichach, so they answered up there in Shemayim, they answered Rabbi Bar Nachmani. The Amoira, Rabbi Bar Nachmani is going to resolve this machlekes. The Amr Rabbi Bar Nachmani, Ani Yochid b'Negoyim, Ani Yochid b'Olis. Rabbi Bar Nachmani said, I am unique, I'm special. I'm the only one, or the best one, in the halachas of Negoyim, and in the halachas of Tumah, of Ahalais Tumah, of someone who's under the same roof, or as a Inyan Shel Tumah. So Shadru Shlicha Basrei, so they sent to get Rabbi Bar Nachmani to pass in the Shaila. And the Gemara says over there that Malach HaMavis couldn't get him, because as we know from the first page of Tanya, Pasik Puma Migirsa, he didn't stop to learn, so that Malach HaMavis couldn't get him until a wind came, and it distracted him. And as he was being taken to Shamayim, he pronounced his psak, Toir, Toir, Omar, Toir, Toir. He said that in the case of a suffix, whether the Beheres came first or the Seir Lavan came first, the person would be Toir, and he says Toir twice. And on this we have a very basic question. Number one, how is it possible for the Mesifta Dirikiya to argue with Hashem? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Mesifta Dirikiya. He's the boss. How does the Mesifta Dirikiya argue on HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And the second question, and how do you explain the fact that Rabbi Bar Nachmani, who is an Amoira, who is a physical human being living on this earth, is the one who is going to resolve the machlekes between the two of them? So in order to explain this, we're in Oz Beis, he's going to first explain the concept of hachra'ah, of resolution. When two people are in or two parties are in a dispute, are in a disagreement, and then a third party comes to resolve the dispute. So sometimes he says this one's right and this one's wrong. Sometimes he'll make a compromise. He'll say you give in a little bit, you give in a little bit, and together we'll come to a compromise. Hachra'ah, he's going to say here, is not that. Hachra'ah is pshat, that the two opinions remain intact, and the third person or the third party introduces another perspective that does not disagree with either of the first two, and therefore both of them can accept his approach because he is a third opinion, a third perspective that contains and includes both of their perspectives and doesn't argue with them. And this is what he's going to explain to us in Seif Beis. It's known with regards to resolution or hachra'ah between two opinions that are opposed one to another. Asher ein pirush machriya maskim la'achas mibeis hadeyas hasvareis. It doesn't mean that the machriya, the one who is resolving this argument, is agreeing to one of the two opinions or one of the two ideas. Ki'im hideya shlishis. It is a third opinion, is a third approach that includes, that contains within it both approaches. And this is the reason that the halacha is like the compromiser, which is not really a good translation because he's not compromising, but the one who's resolving. Because the opinion, the approach of the machriya is including both opinions. He's even including the one who disagrees with him on the conclusion. He's saying Tar, and someone else says Tameh, but they're not disagreeing in the idea. They might disagree in the conclusion, but they're not disagreeing in the original idea. Therefore, the idea of the one who's arguing with him is not opposite of the svara of the one who's resolving this argument, and therefore the halacha follows like him. In other words, let's see it from the perspective of Torah. In Torah, we say, Eilu ve'eilu divrei Elokim chayim. Even if we have to paskin the halacha like one of two different opinions, but both are a chelek of divrei Elokim chayim. Both have a sense of emes to them. So to come and say this one's wrong is not really a hachra. How are you machriya between the two? You say you're right and you're right. Both of you, from where you're coming from, the perspective that you're looking at it, at this idea from, is correct. But I will introduce a third perspective that won't argue with either of you, and both of you could accept this perspective. And that's the uftu of the machriya. That rather than argue with them, he introduces a third angle which both of them can agree upon, because his third angle includes both of their opinions without arguing on them. And to bring in the way of example, he brings an idea, a very basic concept from Chesed. Ubedugma lemasha motzinu, the midah hashlishis, midas harachamim tiferes, shehi koleles umachraz bein midas hachesed and midas hadin gevurah. The midas, we know that you have chesed, which is midas, which is on one extreme. You have midas hadin or gevurah, which is on the other extreme. Then you have rachamim or tiferes, which is known to be the one that compromises or that merges the two together. In the conclusion, also Rachamim says to give Tov Chesed to whomever needs it. So how could you say that Rachamim is compromising between Chesed and Gevurah if Rachamim is arguing with Gevurah? Because nevertheless we say that Rachamim includes Gevurah. How is it possible? Seemingly Rachamim seems to be much closer to Chesed than to Gevurah. The Abir Bazah. So how do we say that Rachamim or Tiferes is a Machriya, is Koilel, includes both Chesed and Gevurah? So he explains like this. Midas HaChesed Roya Teiv B'chol Adam U'B'meila Harei Kulam Ru'yim La'ashparas Teiv Chesed. Chesed sees the good in everybody, and therefore Chesed wants to give Teiv Chesed to everyone. Gevurah is opposed to that. The idea of Gevurah is to be very, very, to judge very specifically on each person to see whether they deserve the Teiv Chesed. Even heaven, even Shamayim is not worthy in the eyes of Gevurah. In a certain sense, they're arguing with each other. Chesed is saying, let's give to everyone. Gevurah is saying, no, you can't give to everyone, because not everyone is deserving. Nobody is deserving. In the Maimer, in B'chol Kesei Tafrei Samach Zayin, which was brought in the Orah 7, he brings that this is the Inyan of Erein Seif L'mayla Mayla Adin Ketz, U'Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis. That Gevurah is seeing things from the perspective of L'mayla Mayla Adin Ketz, from the essence of Hashem, which over there nobody is deserving of any Hashpah Teiv Chesed, because nobody is up to par from the perspective of Atzmos. And Chesed is seeing things from the Mata Mata Adin Tachlis. If you come down into this world, everyone's trying hard, everyone's making an effort, and everyone deserves something. So it's really two perspectives of Elokus. So Chesed and Gevurah are seeing things from two perspectives. In truth, however, if you go deeper just a little bit, Chesed and Gevurah are not arguing with each other. Because Chesed is discussing the giving. Chesed is about giving and wants to give. Gevurah is not really discussing the giving. Gevurah is discussing the recipient. Does this recipient deserve it, yes or no? So Chesed and Gevurah are really not arguing with each other. They are menuged zelazeh, because in the Maskana, Chesed is saying give and Gevurah is saying don't give. But in truth, Chesed is focused on the act of the giving. Gevurah is focused on the recipient, whether they deserve or not. And this is where Rachamim comes in. Rachum says, let me introduce to you an approach that I will agree with Gevurah, that the person doesn't deserve, but nevertheless, I will agree with Chesed that we should give anyway, out of Rachmanis. I'll say to Gevurah, and Mistaka, the person doesn't deserve it, but let's have pity on him, let's have Rachmanis in him, and let's give anyway. And Gevurah can handle that. As long as you're ready to acknowledge that the recipient doesn't deserve it, then Gevurah accepts that. So all of a sudden, Rachamim is accepting Chesed's approach that he wants to give, accepting Gevurah's approach that the person doesn't deserve it, and is still able to say, let's give, and Chesed and Gevurah both agree. Rachum comes and says, don't give it because they are worthy of it, they're deserving of it. Because Rachum agrees with Gevurah that they do not deserve the good. Because it nevertheless comes Rachum and says, nevertheless, we should still give it to them. Because it's a Rachmanis on them. It's not just in this Gevurah. And Gevurah does not oppose this approach. It doesn't oppose the giving. He opposes acknowledging them as a deserving recipient. So what did we take from this example? That you have Chesed and Gevurah, there are two different approaches. You have Rachum, which is Kaileles umachraas, between the two of them, that it includes both approaches, and it resolves both of them, not by saying one is right over the other, but by finding a third approach that both could work with. And this is the idea of Hachra'ah, which we started in the beginning of the Seif, that we're not trying to put down or say that either of the sides are wrong. We're trying to find what are the two sides arguing about, and how could we find a third approach that accepts both opinions and can introduce a third opinion that both of those can accept as well. So from this we'll understand in our concept when Rabbi Bar Nachmani is machriya between the approach of the opinion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the opinion of Mesifta D'Rekiya, Shadas Rabba Toher Toher, when Rabba comes to say Toher Toher, it's not for the same reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Toher. Because if it was, then he's not being machriya. He's just picking a side. Rabbi Nachmani's approach is a third svara that includes both svaras. Even Mesifta D'Rekiya is not opposed to the svara of Rabbi Nachmani. And the reason that Rabbi Nachmani is capable of being machriya between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta D'Rekiya, who k'deisi b'Gemara Sham, as the Gemara says over there, neichach Rabbi Bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Bar Nachmani, ani yachid b'negoyim, ani yachid ba'oleis. Rabbi Bar Nachmani said, I am the yachid in negoyim, I am the yachid in oleis, in the halachas of negoyim and the halachas of tumas oleis. V'hainu shmitzad zeh she'Rabba yachid b'negoyim, yachid ba'oleis. Because Rabbi had this advantage, had this unique specialty of being a yachid, b'negoyim and yachid ba'oleis, l'chein b'yicholti l'chadish svara kileles as beis ha-svaris. Therefore, he is able to introduce a new svara that is kilel the beis ha-svaris, the two svaras of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Mesifta D'Rekiya or l'achriya b'neim, to be machriya, to resolve between them. So we didn't explain yet how. We just explained that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta D'Rekiya have two svaras that are opposed one to another. Rabbi Bar Nachmani introduces a third svara that's kaidal l'shteim, and therefore he could be machriya between them. How does he have that power? Because he's the yachid bin negoyim. And now we have to explain what are those two svaras. What is Rabbi Bar Nachmani's third svara, and what does it mean that he's a yachid bin negoyim, yachid b'oleis? Eis dalet. The yuvan zeh behaktim amavur belukutotera de parshaseinu. There's actually a maimer in Likutei Torah in Parashas Tzaria on this machlekes of Mesifta D'Rekiya and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And he explains as follows: Asher HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chinas ha'elokus shelamayla me'elamis, b'chinas sevev kol almin, shalachei nikra b'shem Kadosh Baruch Hu, lefi shehu kadosh shemuvdu me'elamis. The level we're calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking about the darga of Elokus that is outside of the Elamis, also known as Seviv Kalalmin, which means that it's a makif on the Elamis. It's connected a little bit to the Elamis, but it's outside of the Elamis. And it's called Kadesh Baruch Hu because it is Kadesh, it is separated from the Elamis. Then the Ha'er Shemeir b'Mesifta D'Rekiya, and the Ha'er that's in Mesifta D'Rekiya, Hu B'Chinas Elokus Shebe'erech HaElamis. This is coming from the Elokus that's within the Darga of Elamis, B'Chinas Malak Alalmin, the level known as a Malak Alalmin. Just to explain in other Asias, there's two perspectives, sometimes referred to in Chesed as Das Tachten and Das Elyon. Das Tachten, which is the perspective of a Malak Alalmin, is where the Elim is Abimitzias, the reality or the present, the primary presence is Elimis, and Elokus is Chachos. Elokus is the novel concept. And then there's Das Elyon, which is the perspective from the Eir HaSev of Kalalmin, which is that the Elokus is Bimitzias, the primary reality is Elokus, and Elimis is Chachos. The Elimis are the novelty. Because it's for Tzaria of Kalalmin, so this elements are still there. It's just far away because it's Seviv, it's Eramakif, it's removed from the elements, it's Kaddish. So therefore, the Ikir there, the main thing that's being seen from the perspective of Das Elyon, from the perspective of Seviv of Kalalmin, is the Elokus, is the Oyer, and the Mitzi elements is Bis Chachos, is a novel concept. It's something that's there as a Chiddush. So now, the Zeu, and this is Pshat, this is where the Machlekes comes from. It's a Machlekes between Das Elyon and Das Tachten. Sofik, if there's a Sofik, whether the person had the Beheres first or the Se'alavan first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer Toir, the Kulu Mesifta D'Rekiya Amri Tameh. He explains, Tumah b'mitzad Yashus. Tumah comes from Yashus. Therefore, the Tarasa b'Tfila, therefore the Tara of Tumah comes from Tvila, when going into a mikveh. AC is bittul, which Tvila is the same AC as bittul. V'lachein, when we have a suffix, is this person in a state of Tara or in a state of Tumah? Has the yeshes of this individual become so severe that he's in a state of Tumah, it has overtaken him to the point that he's Tameh? Or is it not so bad yet? Mesifta D'Rekiya Amri Shehu Tameh. Mesifta D'Rekiya says he's Tameh. Ki ha'er ha'mislabesh ba'elamis. The air that is coming down, that is enclosed into the Elamis. In other words, ha'er ha'musik b'Mesifta D'Rekiya, the air that is reached or comprehended in the level of Mesifta D'Rekiya, Nesin Makam L'B'tziyas V'yashis, is a place where the Elamis are present. And therefore there is room for Metzias outside of Elokus, ultimately Yeshus. And even when the Elamis are bottled to Elokus, even the Malak Alalmin, it's for the Elamis are bottled to the Chayis Eliki that's being given to them, it's only a Bittul Yesh. So we're very close to Yeshus. In other words, there's room for a Metzias, there's room for Elamis. And even when the Elamis are bittul, it's only a bittul hayesh, which is not a complete bittul. Lachein, kishayeshne sofek uchshash ha'adam nitma. When all of a sudden there's a chshash that maybe the person has been affected by his yeshes. The very fact that we're even suspecting that the person is tamei, meaning that there's a problem of yeshes over here, is already a proof to us that something is not okay, that something is problematic. So therefore comes Mesifta D'Rekiya and says, if we're suspecting yeshes, who tamei misafek al kapanim, at least misafek is tamei, because we understand what yeshes is, so to speak, and yeshes is a problem here. And if there's a shash that maybe there's yeshes here, we have to say that he's tamei. However, from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because when you're looking at it from Das Elyon, when you're looking at it from the Seif of Kalalmin, over there's no room for Yeshus. And the bittul that exists from the Elamis to Elokus, towards the Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, Ubchinas Bittul B'Metzias. Because it's so far away, meaning to say it's so much higher than it, that the Eir HaSeiv is so much higher than the Eilumis, that the Eilumis are in ganzen bottle to the Eir HaSeiv. So therefore there's no room for Yashas. If you don't know for certain that the person became tamei, that the person has been infected by his Yashas, who tie? The person is tired. Because as long as you can't prove it to me for certain, I go with the given. The given in the perspective of Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, there's no Yashas, Bittul B'Metzias. So this explains to us how it's possible that Mesifta D'Rekiya should be in a machloikis with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Mesifta D'Rekiya is looking at it from the perspective of Eir HaMamal Kol Almin, and in Eir HaMamal Kol Almin there's makom for yeshes, and therefore we have to be machmir, so to speak, and say that if there's yeshes here, the person is tamei, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking about the perspective from the angle of Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, where there's a place of Bittul B'Metzias. So unless you see the yeshes clearly, you say he's Torah, because there's no yeshes allowed here. It's allowed, but it doesn't exist. Oh. So we at least understand the machlokes between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta D'Rekiya. Now we have to understand how to resolve this machlokes. And how does Rabbi Bar Nachmani introduce a third approach that would resolve this machlokes? Hine yodua shegam Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin yesh tzaychos leilamis. Even Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, which is far removed from the Eilamis, is Kaddish and Muvdal. Nevertheless, it's still connected, it has a connection to the Eilamis. Sharehu Seiviv La'al. In its very name, we're calling that it's Seiviv, it's Makif, it's encompassing the Eilamis, which means that although it's removed from the Eilamis, because it's only a Makif, but nevertheless it's being Makif on what? On the Eilamis. So a Shaykh is to the Eilamis it has. That's why in this context we're calling it HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shepirushay Kadosh, who moved canal, which Kadosh means that it's moved, it's separated. The very fact that we have to call it Kadosh, Miloshin moved, separated, and say this level is separated from the Elamis, shows that there's a reason we have to say it. That there is some connection, but they're separated. If it was totally removed from the Elamis, you wouldn't have to say it's moved from Elamis. The very fact that you're saying that it's moved means that the Elamis are in the picture. So just like we said about the word Seiviv Kol Almin, the fact that you're saying Seiviv Kol Almin means Elamis are in the picture. So the Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, even though can compare to Mala Kol Almin, it's Kaddish Shemuvdul, and the Eilamis are bottled with Metzias Legabi the Eir, because the Eir is so great compared to the Eilamis. Nevertheless, the Eilamis still play a role, so to speak, in the level of Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin. Umizem muvan, shegam habitul the Eilamis mitzad b'chinas Eir zeh, so to the bittul of Eilamis to the Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, even though we just said that it's a bittul b'metzias, which is a total bittul, nevertheless, it's not the kind of bittul that totally excludes the existence of Eilamis. Ki'im sheyashna is a metzias, sheibetei le'elav yizbarach, v'abittul b'efesh v'abittul metzias. It's just that there is a metzias, there is the metzias of Eilamis, but these Eilamis are batul and a bittul b'metzias to the Eir. But it's not like that you're saying they don't exist. They exist. It's just that they're in a state of bittul legabi the Eir. But the Eilamis are still there. It's not a complete bittul to the point that it's like they don't exist. Why are we trying to bring this point out? Because we want to lead up to the next paragraph or two, which are going to bring out there's a higher level than Eir HaSeiv of Kol Almin, in which Eilamis do not exist at all. L'mayla m'b'chinas bittul zu, hi b'chinas bittul ha'Eilamis mitzad atzmusi musi yizbarech she'enoi begeder almin klal. The higher bittul will be the bittul of the Elamis to Atzmus Umuhus Yisbarach, the highest level, the etzem of Hashem, which is Einay Begeder Alman Klal, is not even within the context of using the term Elamis. Ki bittul zeu be'efen ha'shedel me'ikare kol metzius elasi yisbarach. This bittul is in a way that entirely and totally excludes any other existence other than Hashem, and therefore the bittul is a totally different bittul. Like we said before, the bittul from Eira Seviv allows the Elamis to be in the picture, but only in a state of bittul the Metzias. Mitzad, the perspective of Atzmos Umuhus Yisbarach, it's Ein Begeder Alman Klal. The bittul is so strong that it's as if the Elamis do not even exist in the first place. V'lochein bevor, sh'legabe Atzmos Yisbarach le'shayach alo midas echad. That's why it's explained in Chesed that you can't use the word echad on Atzmos Umuhus Yisbarach. Ki echad. The word echad, which means one, does not define the lack of existence of Elamis entirely. Because one, in the numbers, there's one and then two. One doesn't tell me that there's nothing else besides it. And when we say that Havaya Echad means Achdus Havaya, the oneness of Hashem, it doesn't mean that there's no other Metzias besides Hashem. It means that everything that exists is one with Hashem. It means to tell me that the existence of the world is one with Hashem. You have the 7 Nikim and Aretz, which is 8, which is Meruma is alluded to in the letter Ches of the word Echad. The 4 corners of the world, the 4 sides of the world, which are hinted in or alluded to in the Daled of Echad. And they are one with Hashem, the oneness of the world, or the Aluf Yisrael, the master of the world. Hameruma is Ba'aluf Echad, which is the Aluf of Echad. So when we say Hashem Echad, we're trying to say that everything that Hashem created, the Elamis, the Rikim, the Aretz, the Dal, the Luchas Elam, are all one with Hashem. But what are we saying? That there's Elamis, that there's another Metzias, but it's battled to Hashem Echad. So this type of Achdus only works with the connected to Elamis in some way, could be mevatel the Elamis, that the Elamis could be battled to it. But if you're going to say the idea of the yichud, the oneness, what that comes from the perspective of Atzmos, that's beyond Eira Seviv Kalalmin, who lay b'eifin de echad ela b'eifin de yachid. Over there, it's not one, but the only. Echad means one, yachid means the only one. Hainu shehu levadayu v'efezulasei. That the Eibishter is the only one, and there's nothing else besides the Eibishter. So there is Me'era Mamalak Kalalmin, where the Elamis are Tefes Makim, and they're battled, but only a bittul hayesh. Then there's Eira Sevav Kalalmin, that is Kaddish and Muvdul from the Elamis, but it's still Begeder Elamis, and the Elamis attack a battle by Metzias, but there's still an existence that becomes battle. And then there's the Eir that comes from the perspective, let's rephrase that, the bittul that comes to Atzmusa Yemusa Yisbarech. Over there, the bittul is in a way where the Elamis are not Tefes Makim at all. It's not that they're Tefes Makim and they're battle, but they're B'chlal Hu Levadeu V'Evezelasei. There's nothing that exists besides for the Eibishter. Based on this, we could explain the Chiddush when Abba comes and says like we said before, it's not the same approach as the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying Torah, but it's a new approach. And therefore, Davka, the Das of Rabbi, was able to convince, so to speak, the Mesifta Dirikiya to be Machriya and to accept that the din would be Torah. And he's going to explain, the Nekuda that he's going to explain is that from the perspective of Mamala Kalalmin, Hayes, that save of Kalalmin, is still Begeder Ilumais. Therefore, what Mamala Kalalmin knows Yeshes, and therefore is not willing to accept, so to speak, that in a save of Kalalman there's no Yeshus. But when Mamala Kalalman is introduced to the Ha'atzmos, on that level, even Mamala Kalalman is convinced that there is Shayach, a matziv of no Yeshus. And therefore it could say Tar. Let's learn it inside. L'gabe b'chinas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, שהביטול והייחוד של האלמס מצד בחינה זו הוא בבחינס אחד. היינו שישנם אלמס אלא שהם בתהילים כנ"ל, on the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we said is the Eiraseiv of Kalalman, that the bitul and the yichud of the elemis is in the level of echad, which means that elemis exist, but they're bottled to elokos. In the legabe b'china zu, yes, tfisas makam elemis. On this level, the elam is still tefes makim. There's still a space for elam to exist. Ula sagas elam v'avanasai, and for the way elam understands things. V'lachei kulu mesifta dirikiya she'inyana al derech limud ha'teira lemata havana v'asaga davka. So therefore, mesifta dirikiya, which is learning Torah with understanding, amri tamei. They say tamei. Even though they know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Torah, ki hagilu de b'chinas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hainu habitul de'echad shemitzad b'chinas haseva she'er b'hem, hayu b'chinas makif. The gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, the idea of the bitul of echad that's coming down into the Eira Mamala Kalalman, into the Mesifta Dirikiya, which is seeing things from Eira Mamala Kalalman. But the Eira HaSeviv that's coming down into Mesifta Dirikiya, it's only makif. But it doesn't. It's not understood. It's not grasped. It's not. Doesn't. The seichel cannot truly comprehend it because they remained in their mitzias. The Eira Seir of Kalalman, Eira Malak Kalalman, allows for the Elamis to remain in their mitzias. The Havana Vasaga remains in their Havana Vasaga. So even though they see another perspective, they don't truly comprehend it. It doesn't change anything in their mind. And from their perspective, you say it's tummy because there's yeshus here. Even though they're seeing the other opinion doesn't change their mind. Because the other opinion is saying that there is bittul, but a yes that they're still in the sinas malkam la'ilamais. Therefore, what they're seeing is only something that is affecting them b'bchinas makif. It's not affecting them in b'bchinas havana v'asaga, and therefore it doesn't change their mind. But Rabbi Nachmani was a yachid ben Egoyim. Hainu sheheyir ben b'chinas yachid she'enei begeder al min klal. Rabbi Nachmani is coming from the angle of yachid, a place where there's no mokim for elimis at all. Legabe b'chinas zu ein elimis v'aseichos b'hem tefes mokim klal. On this level, the elimis and the seichol are b'klal, not tefes mokim. They don't exist. V'loch ein svara seish lo Rabbi. And therefore Rabbi is able to change the mind of Mesifta Dirikiya. Because since he's coming from Yachid, therefore he is able to draw down within them, into their illumis, into their seichel, the fact that there's another approach. So the way I understand this is that there's two nekudas here. Nekuda number one is, where is the perspective coming from? That Eira Seviv is coming from a place where the bittul is only. The Eira Seviv is coming from a place where the elements are still begeder, are still tefes makim, and the Rabbi is coming from a place where elements are not tefes makim. And therefore, the opinion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not able to go down be'efen pnimi into the Mesifta D'Rekiya because they're not understanding it. But the perspective of Yochid, of Rabbi Bar Nachmani, is that one, it's not begeder Elamis at all, therefore they are able to accept, even though they don't fully understand it, they're able to accept it in the pnimius that it should change their mind. So just to clarify, I think I just did, but I'll clarify it again one more time. I see two nekudas here. One nekuda is that the difference whether the Elamis are Tefes Makim, and I say with the Elamis are Tefes Makim, and in Yachid the Elamis are not Tefes Makim, and therefore the way it comes down into Mesifta D'Rekiya, the Eira Sev of Kolalmin is only Makif on Mesifta D'Rekiya. Masha Enkein, the Yachid is able to come down in a Pnimius even in Mesifta D'Rekiya. And to explain this just a little bit more, he finishes in the paragraph, V'al derech psak din rav, shekeshashalu atam shosak, there's a maimer in Tavshin Ches, Kimenasa, where he's explaining the idea of Re'iyah Sichlis. Re'iyah Sichlis means that a person can see something with his seichel, which means to say that even though he can't explain it, be'oisiyas ha'asbara, he can't explain it, but it is so certain in his mind's eye. There's even a word in English for it. In his mind's eye, which means just like when you see something, it is something that you're confident about. I saw it. You can't tell me I didn't see it. So too in seichel, there's a level where the seichel is convinced that this is the reality, even though it can't yet explain it. And because of that, to explain that in the Maimer, he brings a Gemara from Beya, where Rav said a psak din. His Talmidim, I think Rav Kana and Rav Asi, asked a shaila. With a shaila with regards to Neilad, he said in Afreach, Neilad b'yomtiv is possible to use, or not kosher to use. And they asked a shaila from an egel, a treifa that was born on yomtiv. Rav does not answer the question. He has no eistiyas hasbara of how to explain the difference between an egel treifa, which is okay to use on yomtiv, and an Afreach, which is not. An egel treifa, which was given birth to, not was still inside, which is everyone agrees is not kosher. Nevertheless, as he brings in the Maimer over there, Rav does not change his mind. Rav retains his opinion that this is the psak din, and most or many of the poskim, I wrote it down, Rav, Ran, Rosh, Ravid, all paskin like Rav, even though Rav has no answer. Because Rav was convinced by the Re'iyah Sichlis or Re'iyah Mukhshis that this was the halacha, and therefore even though he couldn't explain to his Talmidim why he came to this maskana, this was the maskana. This is the idea of what happens to Mesifta D'Rekiya. That even though the approach of Yachid is so far removed from them because they're in Elamis, or they're connected to Elamis, and Yachid is coming from a place that is Eine Begeder Almin Klal, nevertheless, they are able to understand that when you're coming from a place of where it's Eine Begeder Almin Klal, there's no room for Yeshus. And if there's no room for Yeshus, then when there's a suffix, if there's tumor here, you could paskin tar. Beautiful. That's pshat Yachid ben Negoim, that it wasn't just that Rabba had a shaykhis to see things from the perspective of Yachid, but even in the inyan of Negoim, even how to paskin the halacha of Negoim, Rabba saw it from the perspective of Yachid, and therefore he was able to be machriya between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Mesifta D'Rekiya. This also explains why HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Torah one time, and Rabbi says Torah twice. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is coming from the perspective of Erasev of Kalam, which is removed from the Elamis, and therefore only from that perspective do you see that it's Torah, and therefore it says Torah one time. Shaking Achra, the Rabbi Yishigami Tzad Elumis with Torah. Rabbi is Machriya that even Elumis, even the Sifta D'Rikiya, which is coming from the perspective of Elumis, even they should recognize Torah. That's why he says Torah twice. Torah mitzad B'chinas ha'er shel ma'ilem Elumis. But Torah mitzad Elumis, that Tzaria, the ha'er shel ma'ilem Elumis, recognizes that it's Torah, like which is obvious because HaKadosh Baruch Hu paskins Torah, and also mitzad ha'elumis, mitzad ha'sifta d'rikiya, also they recognize that mitzad yachid you could say Torah, and therefore it says Torah twice. And this answers the question how it shayach from a sifta d'rikiya to argue with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how Rabbi is able to be machriya between the two of them. And now we're going to bring another inyan, sort of an oisvir, and a connection that we have with from this inyan to the inyan in the beginning of the parsha of Isha Mazras Tchila. This we said in the beginning, this idea that if there's a suffix, the halacha, it's Torah. Nilmed kinal b'tchilas hasicha mi'akasav l'tarei l'tamei. So safe parsha seinu. It says in the end of the parsha l'tarei l'tamei. So we said before that yes kasav pasach hakasav. The pasuk begins with l'tarei. It tells us that if I have a suffix, I should lean to the side of Tara. So that's at the end of the parsha. Bi'aklal, no, it's safe mitchilasim b'seif, and at the beginning and the end are connected. Yes, the kasher inyan anal hachras shel Rabbi Nachmani ima shekasav b'tchilas parsha seinu isha kisazriya v'yol dozachar. You could connect the end of the parsha, which is the hachra of Rabbi Nachmani, with the beginning of the parsha, which is the pasuk isha kisazriya. When Razal learned from this pasuk that Isha Mazras Tchila Yilad Zachar, that if the Isha is Mazras Tchila, if the Isha Mazras first, then Yilad Zachar, but if the Isha is Mazras Tchila, then Yilad Nekev. So this is the beginning of the parsha, and then there's the end of the parsha, and the two things are totally connected. V'yazoi, Rabbi Yerboza, everything that happens with Gashmius originates from its source and its inyan beruchnius in the spiritual world. The fact that we find a maila begashmius and a ish v'isha kipsutam, a human husband and wife living in this world, that there's an advantage of isha mazras tchila, that then you led the zachar, which is considered superior. Why is it like that in the physical world? Because this is a reflection of how it is in the Ish v'Isha Ruchnim in the spiritual worlds. Kiviyachol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael, the Eibishter is the Ish, and Knesset Yisrael is the Isha. So yes, that by the Ish v'Isha there's a maila, by the Eibishter and Knesset Yisrael there's a maila of Isha Mazras Tchila, of the Avodah of the Knesset Yisrael over HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, it comes down that way also in this world, that an Isha, which is Mazras Tchila, is Yilad Zachar. Zoysi Meres. She has Yisrael Maila B'Avodah the Knesset Yisrael, Isha Mazras Tchila. There's an advantage and a specialty or a uniqueness in the Avodah of a Yid or Yidden, which is the Isha Mazras Tchila, Al Amshachas Alakus, Shin Mishachas B'Sirus D'Leila, over the Amshachas Alakus, which would come down into this world through in the Sirus D'Leila, which would be the union of Isha Mazras Tchila. So there's an advantage of Isha Mazras Tchila, which is our Avodah of Knesset Yisrael, over Sirus D'Leila, which is Isha Mazras Tchila. K'mayim Razal, Gedei L'Mais Tzadikim Avodah Knesset Yisrael, Yeser M'Mais Shma'im V'Odet M'Mais HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like Chazal tell us that the Ma'is Tzadikim, referring in this case to the Ma'asim of Knesset Yisrael, is greater than the Ma'is Shemayim V'Oretz, which is in this case the Ma'is of the Eibishter. That what we do here in this world is greater than what the Eibishter did in creating the world. And this is why also in the physical world, when Isha Mazras Tchila is Yiledes HaZachar, because this is just a reflection and a hishtalshalus from the way it is in the Elam Ruchni. V'zeu ha'kishur shebein tchilas hasedra ha'mayla shebisha mazras v'seifa ha'chraose shlodaba bar Nachmani. This is the connection between the beginning of the sedra, which is the mayla of the Isha Mazras, and the end of the sedra, which is the achra, the resolution of Rav bar Nachmani. Al derech ha'alacha she'ein mashgichim bebaskel v'teira le b'shamayim. According to halacha, that we don't follow a baskel and teira is not in shamayim. Ein livsei kadin shetoir v'pnei shekuchabrichu eimer toir. You can't pass in Torah because Hashem says Torah. V'lochen pesach aravim shetomi, and taka the Rambam passes that is Tomei. V'zehu she'amru d'neichach rabba chulu she'u yachid b'negoyim, and that's why they say that only Rabba could resolve this machlekes. V'chiu yachid yeser mikuchabrichu. V'chiu yachid yeser mikuchabrichu. Is he greater than? Is he yachid more than Hashem? What do you mean? That dafke Rabba could be neichach. Ela shatera nitna lemata dafke. V'hakadosh baruch hu chiyech v'yomar natzchuni banai. But the Eitera was given to lemata, to given to us. And the Eibishter smiles upon us and says to his children, I want you to be victorious over me. I want you to argue with me and to win over me. And I want you to do that, to see it, to do it from your perspective, lemata. Dafke Rabba, which is lemata, is the one that could resolve this machlekes and say Torah. And the same thing would be b'pnimis yanyanim. And this is how it connects to the Isha Mazras Tchila. Tirasei Shlo Rabba v'amirasei Torah. Rabba learning Torah and coming to the maskana, to the psak of Torah, which is the same idea as Ma'aseh Tzadikim, the work of Tzadikim, which is Isha Mazras, as we explained in the previous paragraph. Gidei le'yesek kiviyachol m'masha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar Torah is greater than Hashem saying Torah, which is the union of Isha Mazriah. And v'amirasei Shlo Rabba, Himshicha mebchinas Yachid, and the words of Rabba which drew from Yachid, he sheichriya as das mesifta d'rekiya. That's what changes the mind of mesifta d'rekiya. So just like we said that in the beginning of the Seder, Isha Mazras Tchila teaches us the Maila of Avedas Hamata, the Aved of Knesset Yisrael, over the Aved of the Eibishter. So too in the story of Rabbi Bar Nachmani also emphasizes the Avedas Hamata, that even though the Eibishter is the ultimate Yachid, nevertheless the Eibishter could not paskin Tahir in a way that Mesifta D'Rekiya would accept it, and that would be the halacha here lemata, and only Rabba, who is a person from this Olam de lemata, only he could paskin and change and the halacha that it should be tar. Just like, what is the advantage of Isha Mazras Tchila? That she's Yeledes HaZachar. Shemayos HaZachari sheyesh leidas chazaka she'enim mishtanis ma'she'ekim noshim daiton kalis. The Maila of a Zachar is that he has a strong mind that's unchangeable. Al derech zo b'nit nidan. The same thing would be applied in the case of the Achra of Rabbi Nachmani. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Torah, this did not make it impossible for Mesifta D'Rekiya to argue. So the Torah that gets drawn down because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Torah, which is the idea of Ish Mazriya Tchila, it's changeable. Mesifta D'Rekiya didn't accept it. Masha'en ken zeh sharabba amar Torah hainu b'bchinas hatara shenimshecha delimut teirase upsak din shlo Rabba. But Rabba said Torah, which means that through Rabba's learning Torah and paskening a din down here lemata in this world, that this person will be Torah, which is the union of Isha Mazras Tchila, because it's the Avedas Hamata, Isha being the Mata, the Knesset Yisrael. This was able to even change the mind of Mesifta D'Rekiya. And like we said earlier, the Rabba was able to draw down the Yachid, the oneness of Hashem, and therefore the Tara that comes because of it, the total bittul b'mitzias, which is the union of Tara even in this Elam, and therefore it's called Yeled Zachar. It's permanent. That even Mesifta D'Rekiya, and even in this world, in this Elam, it remains to be paskin Torah, which is a sense of permanence that was not made possible from HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar Torah, because that was because that was the Aveda from that's outside of this world. That's the Aveda of Ma'aseh Shemayim V'Aretz, which is Ish Mazriya Tchila, which is only Yeledes Nekeva. Masha'en Ken Rabba was able Aveda Samata. So, B'neisiv to the incredible fusion of Nigla and Chassidus, of explaining this seemingly very Nigla Dikeinian. I mean, the idea that Besifta Dikia is arguing with the Kutz Baruch Hu is also, not mamish trukin and Nigla. Nevertheless, we took this a concept of Chassidus to understand this concept of a machlekes of Torah and Tomei. Why Torah and Tomei? It's based on the idea of Bittul and Yeshus. And not only that, but we also explained that because the Rabba's Maila, on the one hand, we said in the beginning that Rabba's Maila was a Yachid bin a Goy. That he's a Yachid, that is able to reach to the level of Yachid, Atzmas Samus, able to see things from the perspective of Atzmas Samus, where there's Ein Begeder Almin Klal, Hu Levad Yuvein Zulasa. But at the same time, Rabba's Maila is not just the perspective from where he's seeing it, but from the fact that Rabba is here in Elam Lamata, in Elam Shalamata. The fact that Rabba is in this Elam, that's what gives him the power to take the perspective of Yachid and draw it down into this Elam to be able to paskin this halacha that even Mesifta Dirikiya should accept it, and even the halacha in this Elam should follow this Eifen, and in an Eifen of Natschuni Banai.